Welcome to the Reconnection Club podcast, the show that helps parents heal troubled relationships with their adult sons and daughters. I'm your host, psychotherapist Tina Gilbertson. Each week, I'll offer you compassion, clarity, and personal development tips designed to help you reconnect, not only with your child, but with yourself. Now let's get started. I'll begin today by stating the obvious. Nobody I know, and nobody you know, and nobody your estranged adult child or children know is perfect. Perfect people don't exist, and by extension, neither do perfect parents or perfect children. In an honest attempt at accountability, you might have said to your adult child at some point something like, "I know I wasn't a perfect parent." If you did say that to your child, how did it go over? Many parents find that that statement, "I'm not perfect," no matter how heartfelt or well-intended, fails to melt any ice with their child. Or if it does, there's still seemingly work to do to get to a reconnection that feels solid. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about why that might be true and why I recommend against saying those words. Although I believe that admitting imperfection comes from a generous place and may be very sincere and may feel quite vulnerable to the person making that statement, it seems to fall short of the mark of what most estranged adult children want and need from their parents. Here are 4 reasons why. There might be others, but let's start with these 4. First of all, "I'm not perfect" is just kind of vague. It doesn't answer any specific complaint your adult child may have in your relationship or about the family environment. So it doesn't pull much conversational weight. Second, it suggests that your adult child needs or needed you to be perfect, which implies that she's not a reasonable person, because it's not reasonable to expect perfection from any human being, including our parents. Third, it reveals a lack of knowledge about what exactly led to your child's estrangement. And that could get you labeled in your child's mind as clueless, that dreaded state that makes your child not even want to try to communicate what's wrong. And lastly, claiming to be imperfect could come across as if you're saying, "Take it or leave it, I can't do anything about it." Instead of opening the door to a discussion, it may feel to your child like you're closing the door, even if that's not your intention. But when someone says they're not perfect, it's hard to know where to go from there. The truth is, perfection was never required. Not when you were a child, not as a husband or wife, and not as a parent. If you ever got the impression that you had to be perfect just to be acceptable, especially when you were a child, that should never have happened. To get a strong start in life, you needed to be accepted as you were and supported in learning and growing into the best and fullest possible version of yourself. If today you consider yourself a perfectionist, it might feel vulnerable to admit to not being perfect. Take that courage to be vulnerable, and instead of focusing on a general acknowledgement of imperfection, focus on specific behaviors your child has underlined as being problematic for him or her. Examine those behaviors with compassion and curiosity. Figure out where they come from, and try to work on replacing any bad habits with better habits. For help with this, you might listen to episode number 105, Making Necessary Changes. That's at reconnectionclub.com/105. Trying to do better and failing sometimes and apologizing for specific failures is a very human way to move through life. Your very imperfection is part of what makes you human, and therefore both relatable and lovable. So never apologize for not being perfect. If you must, you can apologize for failing to grasp the impact of certain behaviors, or for not trying harder to control behaviors that your child finds hurtful. When you're looking for a way to show accountability or something to apologize for, avoid those 4 problems I mentioned earlier that latch onto the statement, I'm not perfect. Number 1, it's not specific enough. 2, you're implying your child needs perfection, which may be felt as insulting. 3, you run the risk of coming across as clueless about the real issues. And 4, you could potentially shut down a dialogue without meaning to. Despite your best efforts, the phrase might slip out of your mouth before you can stop it. I know that's happened to me before, especially during an apology. But when that happens, you get a do-over. Just follow it up by saying something that acknowledges that a lack of perfection is not the problem. You could say, and I know you don't need me to be. That's not what you're saying. And just like that, your slip-up provides a golden opportunity for you to validate your child, helping him feel both seen and heard. If you're looking to apologize but aren't sure what to apologize for, besides imperfection, don't miss episode number 103, What Should I Apologize For? You'll find that at reconnectionclub.com/103. From one imperfect person to another, please remember that you are a loving, lovable, and still growing human being. So let's you and I take good care of ourselves. Bye for now. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Reconnection Club podcast, I invite you to check out reconnectionclub.com. The Reconnection Club is for parents at any stage of estrangement from their adult, child, or children. So whether you've just realized there's trouble between you, you've been living with estrangement for years, or you're newly reconciled but still walking on eggshells, the Reconnection Club is your essential resource for information, support, and continued personal growth. With our courses and workshops, expert interviews, monthly Q&A calls, and a friendly, active community, the Reconnection Club is a wonderful place to be for anyone suffering the pain of estrangement from an adult, child, or children. So check it out at reconnectionclub.com.